Beeb said, play your position. Don't make nobody live free in your mind or in your mansion. You need to stop them make assumption. Free bars stick like gumption. Chop. Boom, peel it off. Give the technician time for paste the hook up. Big mistake. We judge the content by the cover and not read the book. Boom, peel it off. Give the technician time for paste the hook up. Big mistake. You judge me by the color of my skin and by the way how I look. Then they try rob we culturally. We wax lyrically. Spiritually. Truthfully. Exposing evil spirits and hypocrisy. We do this habitually. Keep the mental vibes up at any party. Levels to my self game is type culinary. Dropping so many gems they call me jewelry. We no need no chat GBT. We do this organically. Boom, peel it off. Give this.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is that time again for our weekly podcast. We do this every Wednesday evening where we take a frank look at issues, no agendas, political or otherwise, no axe to grind, no sacred cows. We touch issues objectively and hope to get input from our listeners. Thank you all for joining us every week. Our viewership is growing and we are proud to appreciate that, to acknowledge that. And we look forward to serving you for much time into the future. We are joined each week by our panel, which includes Joe Cowie from Belize City, Gregory Morrison from the West Coast of America, and I believe Lisa is also on the West Coast, and Deidre sometimes joins us. We are honored to be in your presence again. And we have a very special show this evening. Our guest is already there. Punctuality is a hallmark of professionalism. And we know that our guest is all of professionalism. Good evening, Valerie. How are you?
Hi, good evening, G Mike.
Yeah, we're so
I'm
honored.
good, I'm good.
We're honored. Thank you so much for joining us. We do it every week and we try to get across things in an educational way. Now, we believe that people are supposed to be more in tune with what is going on. From your position, of course, as the Speaker of the House, you have even a wider view of what is going on, a more upfront view than we do. Obvious question right off: is our democracy working? Is it healthy, or do we really need to revamp?
Well, that's a pretty loaded question. Working and is it healthy? I think I have two different perspectives, right? But first, let me say good evening to, I think it's Lisa that's I'm seeing online as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
All right, good evening.
Good evening. How do we address you, Honorable Speaker or Speaker of the House?
Speaker is fine. You don't have to do the
Okay.
honorable. That's fine.
Okay.
Speaker, which
Welcome
is
to our
fine.
show.
Thank you. Thank you. Democracy. Of course, I think our democracy is alive. Whether we like how it's functioning is another thing, but it is alive. We're not operating in a dictatorship. It's not autocratic. And so from that perspective, yes, it is alive. If you're asking about our systems in the legislature, if we could do with some improvement, I will be the first to tell you absolutely. That's the experiment, no, that we continue to have to, since independence, work at. And I know a lot of the excitement is around the actual meetings, even more so because now, as you know, it's live stream, right? So you don't have to trek the 50 miles and physically be in the gallery. You can see it from the comfort of wherever you are, as long as you have internet. And that is the thing that draws people. But that is one aspect, right? The house meeting, the behind the scenes is equally interesting and will need work.
Speaking of behind the scenes, we know that what we see many times are It might also almost be called hostility between the members of the House, it's particular on different sides. But is that real or just a show? Because behind the scenes, I've heard that they go in the back room and share a bottle of Black Label.
Oh,
Is that
I would know about that.
you don't go in the back room?
I would know
You
about
don't go in
that.
the back room. Yeah.
But I speak to the when I say behind the scenes, the processes, right, of the administration of that National Assembly of Belize, the committee system, which I've already acknowledged publicly, we need to improve it because it's not working the way the framers, if you will, of the system of the Westminster model and the oversight and the governance of it. It needs some more work. And that's not just a situation for Belize. It's quite frankly quite prevalent in the Caribbean.
Which is
Madam,
which, go ahead, Lisa.
Madam Speaker, just to let's scale back just a little bit. For
Sure.
those who are not aware of how our government system is, and me specifically, I didn't grow up in Belize, so I don't quite understand how it works. Can you just briefly explain what is the House and what is your role as the Speaker of the House?
Sure. I'm grateful for the question, Lisa, because I do get asked if I'm the third in line, and I think it's because people who ask me that compare it to the U.S. Republican system, and it's not that. So Belize practices the Westminster model of its legislature, and that means that there are two houses. They don't always have to be two, but Belize has the two chambers. There is the upper house, which is the Senate, and you have the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. And that's the house where the 31 members are elected. They're elected to that chamber as a representatives, right? The role of the speaker is, the analogy I can give it to is it's a moderator. That
Referee.
role, it's a referee. You're guided by a set of rules called the standing orders. You don't engage in debate. You will notice if you, at least my approach has been one in the interest of trying to ensure that there's impartiality, that there is no preconceived notions brought into my decisions. When I have to make a rule, I don't comment or opine on any decisions of the government side or of the opposition side. I don't comment on any of that outside of Parliament. What they do outside of Parliament is their business. My concern is what they do inside of Parliament and what the rules say that they ought to or ought not to when they're contributing to a debate. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It is not like the American system where, if the president or vice president is unavailable, then it's the speaker. That doesn't exist.
In their system, the speaker is elected also, isn't she?
Is a member of the
Yes.
House. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. So in Belize, the speaker is elected, can come from within the House or can come from outside of the House. In my case, I was elected from outside, and it's the majority. So obviously, it will almost always be the person that the government would like to see take up the role. There is an actual election, and in the Constitution, it clearly states that the speaker is a member of the House.
From the
They are a member of the
last
House.
meeting, one second, Gregory, I'll get to you. The last meeting was a bit tense, if you will. Are you satisfied with the decorum as it is? I mean, given that we're nowhere near some of the other parliaments in the world where we see fisticuffs and whatnot, but do you believe that the decorum is suitable?
I think we've made some strides in decorum. Am I satisfied? No, I think we can do better. But it's so easy, right, for those of us who are not in, if you will, the hot seat of debate and looking across to your opponents, and for you to say that. But I do think we can do better. I think I've said it before and I say it again. One should be able to debate and get your point across without having to demean the other, without having to make ad hominem attacks, or without having to use what's referred to as unparliamentary language, right? Like, we don't have to operate like within our brawl, right? We don't have to operate like within our bar club and our street fight or anything like that. But I also recognize that, habits, it's very difficult to break. And this isn't something that is new to this parliamentary session. We are in our 13th parliamentary session. And I am the 12th, I believe, speaker, of which I'm the fourth woman speaker of that number. And so it's going to take time, and with practice and an effort on the part of all, including those who hold the presiding officer position, right, the speaker, to set example and say, no, man, we could do better. I'm sure you could find a different term or a different turn of phrase. Or before you even go there, be careful, watch what you say. Sometimes I've had to ask that words be struck out from the record so that it can never be used as a precedent for another presiding officer or another member of parliament who may come after. But it is not easy. Having said that, though, I do think strides have been made to watch some of the language. I'm not going to tell you that it's where it ought to be, nor do I think there's a prescribed standard, meaning a prescribed an example that exists out there. If you watch various parliaments, whether it's from those across the pond, those south of us, those west of us, those north of us, small, large, emotions will get involved with some of these debates, and some of them get very feisty. We're not there, and I'm grateful for that. But it doesn't mean where we're at can't do its own improvement, right?
Right. Gregory?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Speaker. It is my pleasure to finally get a chance to talk with you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you,
I wanted
Gregory.
to find out, in our system of governance, how you think Oz different. I know you mentioned a little bit about the Caribbean, but in other parliaments I've seen, I used to like watching the British Parliament, the meeting the Prime Minister. I forget what they call it exactly.
Prime Minister questions.
Yeah, Prime Minister questions. But that's not is that the extent when you look at that, the debate that goes on in the Parliament, or is there something else that goes on more? What it seems to me in our Parliament, we don't have enough true debate and discussions of the issues. I don't get a sense whenever I leave it that an issue have been vetted in the interests of the people from either side, whether it's be the government presenting it or the opposition addressing it. I never get a sense that they're dealing with the issues in an appropriate way. Is that true, or is there more that goes on before we see what's going on there?
No, and we've gotten that. I think Belize's parliament has certainly gotten that criticism, and I would say rightly so. There is much work to do to elevate the debate. But keep in mind, I go back. So you mentioned the UK Westminster, the UK Parliament, right?
Yes.
Which is which is referred to as the mother of all Westminster model parliaments.
Yes.
But you're looking at a country that's centuries upon centuries steep in this tradition.
Yes.
Belize and so many of the other Caribbean countries are not. And so if you look at many of the other Caribbean countries, they do tend to, as you say, not debate the issues of the day, but go back to when this government be there in, and when I'm their turn in, and look at what used to be done as opposed to what is in
To be done.
front.
Yes.
Right. And that is going to take some time. Now, I recognize that there are some members who do it better than others, right? And there are those who not are new, but also not also new, but just prefer a certain style. You can't be too strict, also in the sense that one has to recognize your culture. And one has the nuances of that, right? We can't come and try import what the Englishman or Englishwoman
Yeah,
do over
yeah.
there. That simply won't work in your local context.
Yes.
But the principles of the system is what ought to work, which is you have decorum in the house, or you ought to have decorum in the house. There are certain procedural matters that have to be dispensed with in carrying and bringing a bill through its stages before it goes to the Senate. There's an oversight mechanism on the part of the various committees. That the principles of those don't change.
I have one criticism about that, though, and it has been a practice of both government recent, where they bring a bill and within the course of a day they do
The three
three
stages.
readings
Yeah.
and dismiss it, and I think that's
Yeah.
totally undemocratic and not well serving to the people.
Indeed.
And yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah,
Now, Speaker, somebody had a question because we know you're selected or appointed by the government of the day. He wanted to know, are you partisan, and should the speaker be non-partisan? Would you and I don't know, because the one party will look at it as, oh, you're on their side, the other side will see it from that side, and that's natural. How do you approach the role of Speaker of the House?
the minute you are elected to the Speaker of the House, and it is an actual election,
It's an election, huh?
but once you are elected,
are you
the
elected by the party?
no, There's
How
a-
is the election of the speaker done? Could you address
so
that?
the majority in the House
Okay.
puts up a name, and they have to vote on it. I'm not there, right?
Yes,
They have to
yes.
vote on it, and how it's done. If as usual, the majority in
Yes.
our system will carry the vote,
Yes.
and therefore that is they put up the name. Somebody proposes it, seconds it. Normally it's the PM who proposes. Then there's a seconder.
Yes.
All those in favor kindly say aye, and then they go and get the word they use, which I don't necessarily like, but it's a tradition, but I don't
Yes.
like it. Doesn't mean that it can't be changed. Then you go fetch the speaker, right?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes, I
And
remember.
then
Yes.
so, but that comes from the English, the old
Tradition.
English, right?
Yeah.
The old English way of speaking.
Yes.
And so they well in the UK originally, that's literally what they did, right? They fetched the person and they brought the person in,
In present.
and so the language is still being used.
But you have been fetched.
Yes,
You have been fetched.
I
Don't
get
remind
collected-
her. Don't remind her. She doesn't like it.
Yeah.
I get collected from an office where I'm waiting for the vote, right? Now, that, of course, when there's a clear majority, one doesn't expect there to be any dissent or issue. Now, you do have some parliaments, like I remember it's the one in, I think it's Trinidad, where the difference between the government and the opposition was one. And so the opposition put up a name. And so you had a name for the government and a name for the opposition. And so they carried out a vote. And obviously the vote that won would be, even if it's by one, right?
Yes.
But it's I say all of that just to say it's an actual election.
Yes.
Now, to your point, G. Mike, you asked me, well, how do you ensure or try to ensure that you're impartial? One of the things I have done is the minute I was confirmed in the position, I don't do anything for the party that I supported. You won't find me at any party meeting. You won't find me. In fact, even my social media has gone down significantly. And I try my best to, I guess the closest you could compare it to would be like a judge who has to try and stay away and out of the public, or limit the interactions. And that's what I try to do. If you look at my rulings, I could be very open, as I have been elsewhere. Many times the government doesn't like how I rule. They don't like it because there's this, there's this thinking that, oh well, if you are affiliated with the government side, and I stood for a convention once, you will rule almost always in their favor. And that's not necessarily the case. At least it shouldn't be. And in my record thus far, there's been many instances where on my rulings, it's not in favor of the government on their points of orders. In terms of, I think you made the point, right, which is a very valid one. When you rule in any one of their favors, hey, you're a good speaker.
Yeah.
When you don't rule in any one of their favor, sure man, you're biased, you this, you that. It's just par for the course. You can't be thin skin about it.
Yeah.
And all you have to try to do is constantly educate about standing orders.
Let me ask you a question.
Is that term of office, or are you serving
It's
the
the
pleasure of the
No, it's an election.
parliament? Okay.
So you serve for the term of the parliament unless you so resign, right?
I see. Okay, and then go on. Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned that the speaker can be a member of the House of the Representatives, or
Yeah.
well, I meant
correct.
an elected member. They
Yes,
become a
that's
member
correct.
by appointment of
Yeah.
speaker or election of speakership.
Correct.
But they can also be a elected member of the House.
Correct.
I don't remember in our history that,
No.
and particularly since independence, that we have had a speaker that was a member of Parliament. They have
No.
always been from outside.
I'm wondering how that would work.
Yeah, and also, well, they always want another. Anyway, the other point, I think they want to preserve their majority, and maybe they don't need to in some instances.
Well, I can only ascertain that it would be very difficult. You would have to be very
strong, independent,
strong, to show that when you make a ruling against the government, and so when I make a ruling that's not in the favor or didn't go the way the government would want in terms of a point of order or what have you, there's no repercussion, right? I don't sit around a cabinet table. I don't sit in parliamentary caucus. So put yourself in that shoe. I think it's more from that perspective why it has never been used, but it is
available.
an option. It is available, and there are a few. I think, other parliaments, if I'm not mistaken, in the Caribbean. I know for a fact for Barbados, their speaker is an air representative, has a constituency.
Okay.
In Jamaica, that's the case as well. So it's not a unique. It's not an unused feature. It's just that Belize hasn't used it, but it is allowed for in the Constitution.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question I was thinking about. It's a very difficult job. I've seen many speakers struggle, and you seem to do it with a lot of ease and comfort and fair knowledge. Is there training that you go through in engaging this role, that through parliamentary procedure stuff that makes you knowledgeable about what to do, when to do it, what your responsibility is as the government present a bill and so forth? Is there something that enlightens you, that training on this?
Baptism by fire. No, there's no formal training. However, there is now what is referred to as an orientation handbook for parliamentarians. It's a very new initiative that was done in the last parliament, and literally just got introduced literally right before the election. So it's tested, right, with this recent general election in 2020. But having experienced that. I've already signaled that there needs to be like a 2.0 version, and then there needs to be a formal training,
Yes.
because there's a lot that needs to go into orientation for the role of presiding officer, but also for role of area representatives,
Yeah.
meaning members of the House, right? And
Yes,
then
yes.
members, as well as members of the Senate. But let me hasten to add this. In Belize, traditionally, presiding officers are viewed only as, oh, you're only to preside over the meetings. Nothing can be further from the truth.
Exactly.
It's just that traditionally, that's what culturally we're used to. So I had taken issue with a media house when they dared to suggest or bring the speaker into their narrative, if you will, and criticism of politicians and I think ministers, and so I made sure that I wrote the media house to said, wait a minute, one, I don't get paid those things that you say, and two, this is what the role of the speaker does. So the role of the speaker is, yes, you preside over House meetings, but you are also responsible to work with the office of the clerk, the speaker is, in terms of the administration of the National Assembly. And the third aspect is the diplomatic role, right? You are the ambassador for the National Assembly. So a lot of these interparliamentary exchanges, a lot of the training that comes from subscribing to the other parliamentary associations, you are responsible to try and do your best to rotate, given the limited budget, that members of parliament have access to this, no? And that you use it also for training for the clerks, because
Yes.
the parliamentary service is not public service. It has its
not?
own. No, it's not part of the Public Service Commission and program.
I see.
So the
Whoa, learned
staff.
something new.
The staff has a National Assembly Staff Committee, which is chaired by the Speaker, that oversees administrative matters on behalf of the staff. And the training for parliamentary officers, save and except for the accounts, which uses the government account system, right, is a very different type of training. You don't get that through the public service. You have to seek that out from the Commonwealth and your other networking opportunities with other parliaments, formal training, right, for the staff.
Now, Speaker, it has been suggested that few people have even read the Constitution. Obviously, you have familiarized yourself with it, being the person you are. Do you think it's okay? How do you see the review that's going on? Our good friend Joe, and we'll bring him in a minute, suggest that there's nothing wrong with the Constitution, it's just the implementation of what is in there. What's your view on it, and should we review it and change it, or is it okay as it is?
Well, I'm of that view, of that, if you will, upbringing, where when something has been in place for such a long time, it's quite in order to take a moment to reflect on it based on circumstances that may have changed, to see if it needs upgrading or improvement. And so I have, I think this is good. I think it's good for the community of Belize, both in Belize and outside of Belize, Belizeans living abroad, to use this as an opportunity to be, yes, fully engaged with what the Constitution says, and if it is still applicable or if there's areas to be strengthened. Let me give you just one example, and I'm not going to get into a debate about it. It's not that's not my role, and really I don't want to prejudge anything that the PCC is doing. But when you look at the Constitution, there's probably only one section, and I think it's in the preamble, if I'm not mistaken, that refers to the term gender equality. Doesn't define it, doesn't give it any meaning. There's another one, which obviously I think we'd be familiar with because of recent events. And that is in the section 59 of the Constitution, where it refers to crossing the floor, but it doesn't define it.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so those are just two, but there's several aspects of the Constitution that I think warrants a review. And in the review and in that revision, I do think it's an excellent opportunity to educate everybody about what this Constitution, which is the supreme, it is the supreme law. So we should be familiar with what it says. And then if you are an engaged citizen, you should be able to say, well, does it really speak to me? Do I understand what my constitutional rights are? And do I recognize when they have been trampled on? So I think it's good. I don't know, obviously, how it will pan out, but I really do hope that all of these efforts in reaching out to Belizeans and trying to get their viewpoints, I really hope it's being taken up, because it's the one document, if you will, that is for literally all of us. So you better speak to all of we, right?
Well, all the way, I think, needs to take that step forward and engage yourselves, be involved in the process. No, you spoke of on gender equality, and I don't know, that's pretty much self-explanatory. I believe that all genders ought to be equal.
You would think so until you get into a discussion about it. And then and that I have been in rooms where I thought, okay, this should be easy. Of course, we'll fight for gender equality, and then suddenly the hands go up. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, to what extent? And that is why I'm saying that and that, like I said, that's one example why the Constitution, I think, it's timely, man. We're 43.
43.
We just turned 43. Let me give you another example. Why I think these types of revisions are important. The standing orders. The standing orders date back to 1966 or thereabouts. And so we are pushing that they be revised. Remember, the Speaker doesn't sit on any of these committees, right? I have recommended, there's been a lot of work done, a comprehensive review. So it's a process, and I'm very confident it will come. And I'm hoping before this parliamentary session ends. But even the standing orders, which the Constitution refers to, right? It's the rules of the House. Even that's outdated, and that needs updating. So no less is required of the Constitution, especially one that hasn't been looked at comprehensively. I'm not saying it hasn't been looked at ad hocly, because you've had some changes to the Constitution. That's why you have 13 senators now, right?
You're talking about updated. 1 second, but is it even adhered to? I speak of the situation with Sister B, for instance, and we know she has not been to any of the House meetings. I don't recall seeing her at any of them.
But
isn't it a part of the standing orders? Does the standing orders require that she be there?
But as per the standing orders, which is dated 1966, she has not broken any rule. The standing orders is outdated. But why is it outdated? Well, it's outdated because you have a standing order that is premised on House meetings that occur weekly, which I believe is Standing Order 11. I may have my numbers off, but it's the early parts. So everything flows from that premise in Standing Order 11, that you meet weekly. That is why Standing Order 84, that deals with absences, is very specific. It's about the amount of absences, but within a certain time, consecutive absences within a certain time. Belize, from independence, has never practiced weekly meetings. It's not the culture of Belizeans, of members of parliament.
Well,
I wanted to address that.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask that very question. You led right into it, because I'm wondering, it was supposed to be weekly, and we're having it, I think, once a month or once every 3 weeks. It seems to me
Yeah, we're
that's the
averaging about
standard.
once a month outside of the recess periods. Yeah.
Right. Is that it's really enough time, in your opinion, as you sit there, in terms of addressing the needs of our country? We have what, 450,000 people, and probably, I think it's about that is our population right now. Is that enough time to take care of the business? And even when they meet, it's a 4 or 6 hour session. By 1 or 2 o'clock, they're all out of there. And then the other question I have is the role and position of the speaker a full-time position, or is it a part-time? I know you mentioned that you have other responsibilities. I'm just trying to understand that scope.
Yeah. So I'll take the second one first. So it's treated part-time. Now, there is a challenge. Like when I came on board, obviously, I am trying to fulfill the role as it is intended. And the intended role I get from looking at my colleagues in the English-speaking Commonwealth, looking at best practices, looking at the principles, if you will, of the benchmarks for democracy, looking at overall best practices for robust, democratic, strong parliaments. These are things that are written. And so when you look at it, it really should function more like a full-time position, but it simply isn't. And the remuneration for it is also telling you that it's treated like part-time, right? But notwithstanding that, my interest, at least for the time that I'm serving, my contribution to, if you will, our democracy and our development is, okay, let's see how we can improve the administrative processes, putting the policies, put in some best practices so that the next person that comes along can build on it if he or she so chooses. But even if they don't and they only want to do just the meetings, it's important that the institutional strengthening of the administration, the people that really make it hum, which is the staff, that they have it, that they have been trained, that they are now aware, so that they advise members of parliament accordingly. Now, if you choose to take up the advice, that's another matter, right? I say that because I think sometimes we forget that we elect members to the House to represent us, right? Or the respective, 31 constituencies. So even if we come up, I say we meaning the committee, the relevant committees come up with recommendations, it is still the members of the House who have to determine if they will accept it or not. It's not a dictatorship, and the speaker certainly doesn't have any powers to say it will be this way in terms of certain processes. Now, the other point that you made was regarding if I think the frequency is sufficient. The standing orders clearly say that it shall meet, right, every Friday. Who sets the agenda is the executive. And so if in their wisdom, the executive of any administration doesn't feel that there is sufficient to put on agenda, then there is no meeting, right? Now, if you have an overwhelming appreciation for the need to meet weekly or even every 2 weeks, that will change. But that doesn't come from the speaker.
I see.
Like I've heard many times I've heard this, on media in some interviews. Oh, the speaker will decide when it comes on the agenda. No such thing. The speaker only, at least in its current construct, the Speaker of the House of Representatives for Belize referees and moderates, doesn't determine what goes on an agenda, doesn't determine what goes in a bill.
Only the government does that? Does the opposition have any role in determining a meeting?
Private, you could have private bills. And of course, you can request, and some. I do believe that there is a measure of collegiality, if that's the term,
Mm-hmm.
that is used from time to time when they both consult both sides. The
Mm-hmm.
leaders of both sides would consult to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, these three bills are pretty much dealing with the same thing, and it's because of whatever. Maybe there's some external force that's saying that Belize has to comply. And so they
Mm-hmm.
may agree, for example, let's just debate these as one, since they
Mm-hmm.
all refer linked to each other. So there's that measure of
Mm-hmm.
collaboration and so forth. But
So, good.
as I was going to say, at the end of it, though, you as a citizenry, if we are, I think you referred to it, G Mike, if the citizens want more, they can agitate. Whether we
Mm-hmm.
use that power enough, I leave that up to you, to decide. I don't think we appreciate the power of our actions, of our voice, and what we can do in terms of our engagement with the legislature. But we don't do it.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the
that's a cultural thing, no?
Maybe we're
that's one of the
lazy.
comment Mr. Cowie always have, that democracy has to be a constant engagement, right, Mr. Cowie?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Joe, you want to come in now? You're
Let me
being
come in
quiet.
first and speak about the speakers. And I've been around there in 1981.
Shift your camera a little bit, Mr. Cowie, so we could see your face. We're seeing the side of your head.
Just here,
That's
boy.
perfect. Yeah. Oh,
Oh, please.
what did you do now?
There you go. You make the man Ghana.
Touch it and it gone off.
Getting back while all right.
In the interim, Madam Speaker, I wanted to ask you, I have a quite of young generation followers now, and one of the young students reached out to me and wanted me to ask you, how can they be a part of the Speaker of the House? And how can they become a Speaker of the House? How do
Oh,
you, I mean, they want to know what type of schooling they need, what kind of academic courses they need to have. So, from that perspective, if you were talking to the students, what would you say to them? How
is
would
this,
they
are
be
you talking
able
about the
to?
youth parliament, Lisa, or
No, I'm
uh,
not speaking about the youth program. I'm just
That
talking
might
about
be a way.
the
That might be a way. Yeah.
high schoolers in general who
oh,
see the speaker all the time, and they
oh.
want to know how do they get a job within that realm,
They
basically.
want to take your job.
If they're in high school,
Um,
she'll give it to them.
well, first of all, I'm just very excited that you even have young people that are looking to that, because I
Yeah.
do think, I try to differentiate, and perhaps I'm failing at it, but I try to differentiate between a parliamentarian and a politician. It is a huge responsibility, and when Mr. Koyi comes back on, he has held that responsibility. It's a huge responsibility to be a member of the House of Representatives. And until we start to appreciate the weight of that, without being a minister is also a huge responsibility, but to appreciate the power and the impact that a representative has and what it can do for you as a citizen. But we don't practice that in Belize, right? We don't have the habit of, hey, you should raise this with your area rep. You got a concern
Yeah.
that is about your neighborhood, your community, or an issue outside of that, but that's impacting you. You have every right to agitate, and you and those of like minds like you to bring it to the attention of your rep, because that's what they should be bringing to the House. Now, when you ask about what training, I'll be frank here. Of course, if you further your studies and you are an active member of your community, all of those things look great. But there's no formal training to being speaker, other than apply, my humble opinion, making sure that you are being responsible to the post of impartiality, making sure that you apply common sense, and making sure that you do your research. If you are engaged, I'm interested in this, and I've always been interested in politics and the way our system works and our governance. So when you get a call and asked if you can be nominated, you don't take that lightly. But that you get that call because of everything else maybe that you've been doing, right? And it shows. And then it's not a job where you go for an interview, but where you're nominated, and then you say yes, and then you go through the formal election, the procedural
They go
election.
fetch you.
And they go fetch you, right? And then it's also, I think what helps is the on the job, if you will, learning, continuous education. And one thing I will say about the Westminster model and the Commonwealth, through the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, they give you enough avenues to perfect and continually improve on parliamentary procedures. There are online courses that are free. There are what they call twinning exercises, where they pair your parliament with another like parliament. And so you get to exchange ideas and experiences of issues that you're both grappling with, and how maybe you've dealt with it and how they've dealt with it. They pair, there's also opportunities for actual scholarships for the staff, which only serves to help you, because they're more steep, right, in the parliamentary procedures, having been there for so long. So you also get to have that training while you're doing it. So I wouldn't be necessarily caught up with the need to have, I must have a certain training or a background. If you're a professional in what you do, if you're somebody that believes in, obviously, in democracy, if you're somebody that is willing to give back to your community, those are all traits that are welcomed in the position. But once you are in the position, whatever political affiliation you may have or political support, you do have to put that on pause, because you have to be impartial.
Back for a minute to the gender thing, because you said that you were the fourth woman speaker of the House, and we know we've had women representatives, so Madame Liz on up. I spoke of Sister B and a number of other Dolores Balaramos, and we've had Belize has been condemned for maybe not doing enough, but we're not doing too badly, are we, when it comes to gender representation, female representation in our parliamentary system? Do you think?
No, I disagree.
Well, as a female,
No, I think we're doing
No.
terribly.
are you serious?
Yes,
I think it's
we are.
dismal. I think
Yeah.
it's dismal.
Well, it's not one on one, but
But the majority of
doesn't-
voters are, in
doesn't
fact,
need to
women
be.
too, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be one right now. I mean, I'd love that. That would be fantastic, right? But listen, this is the fact. 43 years after independence, Belize has, let's call it 50-50 in terms of the population, right? You cannot really, you can't really say you're in a House of Representatives if you're not even representing half of the population in terms of your gender representation. That's one. Two, we have a dismal 12.9% of our parliament are women. 12.9%.
Yeah.
When the world minimum goal is 30%, minimum 30%.
we're talking about a goal, not a reality, right?
But that's what you just asked. We're not doing too bad. And I'm saying to you, yes, we are.
As the goal, as far as goal, yeah, all right.
Well, not even as a goal. We don't even need to have somebody tell us that. You have 400 and what? Let's use your figure. 450,000.
Speaker, are they interested? Are the women interested in getting into politics? It seems like, well, I remember
We have to
when-
make them interested.
Remember
Yeah.
when Finnegan once said it's a man's game?
Well,
Certainly
yeah,
chauvinistically.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time on the show, I know, but, and I'll say this because this can be a whole separate discussion. To say to, and I don't want to speak for the other two women on the show that I'm seeing right now. But but to ask a woman, but are you interested? I mean, why haven't we stepped up? You have to go back to where the type of system we have had, where the image of leaders have always been men, and it's been a patriarchal society. It's not an easy conversation, but I have no difficulty having uneasy conversations because they have to be had. Who says that the leader has to be in the shape of a man? It is ridiculous. But history, culture has always been that the woman's place is in the home, is more motherly, and shouldn't be doing that. That's a man business, as you said, Finnegan once said. We have to break that, and it's not going. That's something that's going to take some time. And why do we have to break it? Because the very reason why women are not rushing to run is one, men don't like to let go of the power, and two, look at how the image that has been portrayed. And any reasonable woman out there would say, well, wait a minute, why I want to put myself in that, right? And when the few who dare to do it, there's such a double standard for them. A man politician right now at this hour, which is 10 minutes to 8 at night, can go on the block and hang out with his constituents, have a drink or what have you. Not an issue. Let the woman politician do it. And
Different
then suddenly,
story.
different story, because she's supposed to stay home, either, I don't know, mind a man or mind the kids or whatever. It's crazy. And we all contribute to that. We all contribute to it when we listen and promote songs and other things that demean, degrade women. And that comes into the House of Representatives is not like isolated from all of that. So, like I said, it's a topic that it's uneasy. There are varying perspectives on it, but the question asked specifically was, "Oh, are we not? We're not doing too bad." Yeah, I think we're dismal.
Yeah,
And
I tend to agree.
I think we need to do better, and I think we can do better.
Yes.
But that's not only Belize. That's not only Belize.
No, I think it's throughout. Even if you look at the United States and such, the representation, and they do talk that women in government do present a different type of governance, because it usually will deal with more with the social welfare issues of the nation rather than being militaristic. So that is one of the concerns I always have and always appreciate in having women in leadership in those.
So you mean different as in better?
If you're looking after the family, I believe it would be better. If you're looking after the family interests and the welfare of the family,
home, aren't they looking after the family too, though?
That is part of it, but I think in governance it extends it to a wider proportion.
A big part of the problem is, again, the breakdown in the family, and you cannot say that a part of that has not been because women have stepped into more male-dominated areas. I mean, and you're right.
I think the breakdown of the family is because it isn't a two-parent family.
Who are you going to blame with that?
Everybody, the entire society structure has to be blamed for that.
Should the political parties recruit more females to be standard bearers?
That's a question. That's one approach to bringing that about. And
there's been many studies on that. There's a lot of studies in the Caribbean and elsewhere that if you're going to break the mold, if you will, and have more women in parliament.
Shatter the ceiling. Shatter the glass ceiling.
Yeah, I think that a lot of studies have demonstrated that it also has to come from the parties themselves, right? So, listen, one can't be naive. And
what they have to do too is match a woman against a woman. They have to have that generosity when they're running, because if you put a man, a lot of time the competition then goes to the man. So if the one party presents a woman in a constituency, the other party, if they're promoting
That's
that
funny. That's interesting. I
promoting
don't.
that, then they have to put
No.
another woman to compete against her.
Well,
You think?
that's a whole discussion on maybe types of quota if that's where you want to go. Listen, I always say you never train men, right, to be politicians, but now you have women in politics training, and as if women need any more specific training than men. No, I recognize that women do need to be made aware of the environment they're getting in because it's not easy, and they need to be prepared for that. But on the flip side of that, let's face it, no man was prepared for it. No, but no, not a single male parliamentarian had to have any training about getting into politics and just wake up one day, I want to do this thing. I want to get in there.
Maybe it comes more natural.
No,
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 listen,
G
listen,
Mike.
listen. We have to look. We have to look at the whole society, Madam Speaker. The whole society might be demanding what we have, and that might be the toughest part of it.
But
We're
that's what
talking
I
about
said.
it's
Culturally,
a
we
whole
have to change.
paradigm
culturally.
shift that we're looking at. You know,
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yes.
I said that earlier. It's a cultural thing. We come from a patriarchal society. You're not going to undo that in a year or two, or even in a generation or two.
correct, correct.
But
correct.
I think with more and more exposure, more seeing more women in leadership position helps. And I do think eventually, I do think we'll see a difference. I am optimistic about that.
Well, I am hoping for a woman prime minister very soon. I
Uh,
am.
you
I had that for the next two. I said two elections from last election, so I'm still hoping that would be the case.
What's the
Well,
opposite of chauvinism? Go ahead. Go ahead, speak. I'm sorry.
you're so provocative here, G Mike. Come on.
Go ahead.
Anyway, back to my smaller student audience. Another of the questions that I wanted to ask you. A lot of students have been approaching saying that we talk a lot about the Constitution on our show, but yet they're not getting all of what is supposed to be what they're supposed to be enriched with as far as the Constitution. As a Speaker of the House, do you think that we should educate our high schoolers in depth with the Constitution and how to go about understanding how government works in Belize?
No, of course, I would never not agree with that. I think we need to educate, and education doesn't stop, right? It's ongoing, and I think we need to do it in tailor it is the term I'm looking for to the audience, right? So nothing prevents your primary from even your primary level education to begin to be
Civic
sensitized,
classes.
right? To be sensitized about how we're governed, and then when you get into the secondary, to have them even more engaged. You know, we don't do enough of school debates, meaning inter-school debates, and there's a way. That's a discussion that we just had
Part of the
as we're
training,
looking as we're looking to see how the children's parliament can be strengthened. So yes, we do need to have that education. The National Assembly itself, which I've said publicly, needs to do its part to improve its communications outreach and improve its various platforms that it has, so it can reach more people, but even in a user-friendly way, not in this old English,
Right.
legalistic, easy to digest, right?
Yes.
In digestible pieces.
Catch your attention
Right.
of young
So
people.
we at the National Assembly, it too needs to do its part in terms of awareness and education that will be appealing to young people, because being a parliamentarian ought to be something that is looked up to. Ought to be, it shouldn't just be that we're taught, oh, you could be the lawyer, the doctor, the police, the nurse, the banker. How about, hey, why can't you be a parliamentarian? Why
Be
can't you aim
aspired
for that?
Yeah, aspire for that.
You know?
I
Right.
agree.
Do you believe in principle? I know it's not our system, in term limits for like area representative or such, or do you think that would help or democracy, or would it be a hindrance,
I
not giving people the right to choose as they so desire?
I think if we believe in the principle that the people have the right to decide who they want to represent them, I think that rests with them.
Okay. Okay.
Again, those are questions I believe that I'm certain have been raised in these consultations, no, with the Constitutional Commission.
Oh, he's back. He's
Yeah,
back.
he's back. You were talking, Speaker, about the constituents going to their representatives and presenting their issues to them. But don't you think maybe we have to look at this whole system where many of the representatives are ministers of respective areas and hardly seem to have time for their constituents or to go out there and address the problems that they're faced with? Is there something maybe while we review the Constitution and all of that, maybe we could review the entire system and see if it can work any better? Don't you think?
Well, I like many of our Caribbean counterparts, Belize struggles with the separation of powers in terms of the numbers of the executive that are in the House of Representatives, and that's an ongoing struggle. Again, I think it's not for me to say if that should be changed while I wear this hat, but I do think people need to voice their issues with that. Having said that, though, and I see Ms. Sakoyi on, I don't necessarily agree that if you're a minister, you don't necessarily have time for to attend to your area. I think that's a management issue. That's a priority issue. But I don't think that just because you're made a minister doesn't mean that you don't have the time. But Mr. Sakoyi could probably speak to that more because he has sat with that title, so he knows.
Welcome, Joe. Welcome back.
Well, maybe to go to the specific point that there is, I don't see any problem with the era representative functioning as such and at the same time functioning as a minister. But I know one of the concerns that have been expressed is not necessarily because of having an era representative and a minister, but I think the Speaker touched on it before. What happened with the British Westminster model, so to speak? One of the flaws in it for smaller countries you have over 400 and add. You have over 400 and add members of the parliament, but you only have a cabinet of about 29 or so. So you will never have what they call a cabinet dictatorship. But in the small countries of the Caribbean, which adopted the parliamentary model, we have so many people that we want to put into the cabinet, even though the Constitution limits it. But even if it is only 15 in the cabinet, remember there are only 31 seats. So imagine 31 members of the cabinet represent almost 50% of the parliament, whereas in the UK, they will not even represent 10%. So the separation of powers will be more likely to operate there. What is being suggested as a solution to that is simple. So one, and this is part of constitutional maybe consideration, either have the prime minister elected by popular vote, or you continue to have it the way. But what you need to do then is to also make parliamentarians not be members of the executive, and then give the prime minister, whether elected by popular vote or by the majority party, then can form a cabinet from outside. So those are issues that we should be debating if we want to more strengthen the separation. But at the end of the day, it has to do with how upright we want to be as citizens. Because when it comes to partisanship, and it brings me back to the point you were raising earlier, for the Speaker of the House, I know since 1981, I think we have had maybe, let's say, roughly about 10 different Speakers of the House. And one thing I must credit the two parties for is that despite the citizens generally believe that by virtue of the ruling party appointing the Speaker of the House would be expected to be biased. That was not so.
In some instances, they were.
Huh?
In some instances, speakers were. I applaud.
No, but those instances, I can guarantee you this, and the evidence is there for anybody who lived through the period, because we don't have it written down. But if you go back to name every speaker, which we can do, the ones that were so blatantly biased, they were the exceptions. So on both sides, I would give credit that we never made our speakers in this country subservient to the party that was in power. Unfortunately for us, both sides was able to find men and women of integrity who belong and align themselves with those two parties. And I can name some of them, but I will not. We have the present one that I can, where I vote can vote for. Not because you align yourself with what defines the purpose of a party, don't necessarily have to be biased towards wanting to rule, because the speaker is governed by the standing orders of the House.
Yeah.
And that's what guides her. So if she rules against the opposition or rules against the incumbent, the leading party, it's not she ruling against him. It's the standing orders ruling against him. The speaker is only there to speak to the standing orders. So I think some of those things, and I believe that we have been fortunate. For one thing, is that our speakers in Belize, I have never seen them, except one or two exceptions, that was so blatantly biased. And
Well-
coming back to the issue of the separation of powers, I think the only hope for us in separation, because we'll all be partisan. Don't fool ourselves. You are a judge. Evidently, if your mother come before you, you will recuse yourself, because you cannot judge her. So when we become so members of a movement, there is some bias in us, but we need to know how far the bias should go to.
Mm-hmm.
So I would maintain that I think the chairman, and I would just like to correct this, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me one more minute. I have never said that there is no need to review your constitution. No, I think you should. What I am saying, that the values that define the purpose of the constitution is not something that should be subjected to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what actually wronged us as a democratic society to aspire for. Now, what you need to be looking at periodically, like any constitution, whether for the country or for a business, evidently you have to review them. So what are the two fundamental areas of the constitution? Are the one fundamental and the second is our rights, our fundamental rights. So if we want to look at those to see whether in fact we are committing ourselves to the purpose of the Constitution, then look to see whether all our rights are there that should be there. So we could look at that. If anything is left out, then we put that in. But what to me is what is the next most important thing is that your rights will be useless if the other part of the Constitution, which creates the bureaucracy to carry out those rights, is not performing. So my problem I have, and I spoke at the meeting that at St. Catherine when I was asked to attend, and I gave my views to begin, and I asked the question, which one of you in here can tell me whether the extent of our poverty, the extent of our corruption, and the extent of our failure is because of the Constitution? No. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. It's simple an issue of non-compliance. So if you look at the section on finance of the Constitution, which is extremely important when it calls on the government to ensure that the national accounts are being audited. And here we are 7 years, and I'm mentioning one, and that's a very important one. And we are back that we have not audited the national accounts. So to me, that has nothing to do with improving the Constitution. And I can go on and name others, which I will not do tonight because I want to give the guests a honor. But the point we need to look at, let's look at, see that what is it that we had not complied with. And it's not because it wouldn't have been effective. We have over 1,000 different internal controls. They're there in our laws. But if we are not complying with them, as the other general is saying, He can't audit the national accounts because we are not complying with the Financial Health Reform Act. Then we have a public sector, which we know for a fact has become overburdened. There are too many people in the public sector, and again, they are because the two parties were bringing in people who they wanted to give their rewards to. We cannot continue to have a public sector that has lost its efficiency, effectiveness, that has lost the neutrality, the meritocracy, the permanency, and all the things that make for a good, effective public sector. And those are the things that I am more concerned about now. Not saying that I would not want to look at some changes, but everything that we need to do to have the shared prosperity that define the purpose of our Constitution are right there in the Constitution. And if we apply them, then we have a better idea of what we need to improve on.
Yes. Yes.
So that is my input. And
Thank
I'm
you,
not
Mr.
trying to
Creedy.
congratulate the speaker. I am not a member of the House, so I do not need you to be biased, but I must give you that credit. I think you stood up pretty well.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to say this. I think it's Lisa who spoke to the about the young audience that follows her or ask her question.
Yes.
I do think we have to do more to encourage our younger generation to get involved in national issues and national development. And I certainly would love to see more of them engaged with the parliament. So I really am heartened, Lisa, to hear some of the few questions I've heard, because we have done a review over at the National Assembly with the help of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, this administrative review. And one of the things that have come out is the need for us to do more in terms of reaching out. Because, we can't think that it's only those that we have seen for the last general elections or a few general elections will only be the persons interested. We have to really develop our younger generation to aspire to become members of parliament. And it is such a privilege. It's just that we don't give it that weight to responsibility. We kind of restrict it to what we see at these house meetings, on TV.
Yeah.
I had mentioned to UG Mike that I would have to leave by 8, and I'm already getting my signal that we're running late. I should be getting off to go out of the door.
I know.
Well,
One
thank you very much.
one more question. Are you enjoying it, or at least is it? I mean, do you find it interesting in the role of speaker? Do you?
I do, and I do. I don't know if the word is enjoy, but my mindset is one where the house meetings is obviously an absolute principal part of the work that I do, presiding over that. But what I'm so equally interested in is the back of house initiatives that we're trying to do to improve it, so that what occurred with me and previous speakers don't occur again, or we minimize it, where we can actually hand over and say, listen, this is what we've been able to do and put in place. You can build on it if you so choose, but to strengthen the processes that hopefully will lead to a more improved system of administration for the National Assembly, which, quite frankly, the citizenry won't see, because that's behind house, right? That's if you will,
But it
sharpening.
improves the effectiveness of our governance, doesn't it?
Yes, it should, and it's going to take some time. It's like I keep telling the staff at National Assembly, because we've temporarily relocated to the George Price for a year.
They're building a new building or remodeling?
Renovating the building that's been there for about 50 odd years now.
Yes.
Since 1970.
I imagine just the inside, though, right? Because that outside is a part of the whole Mayan.
It's in and out, creating.
Interesting.
Creating. It will still have a feel of that architecture, but there's a lot of space that is wasted space that we can enclose and be functional. But what I was getting at was, while we are temporarily relocated at the George Price Center, it's an opportunity that when we go back over, or when the National Assembly returns, that it does away with the bad habits, and we don't take it over to the new one. So, and that goes to a lot of the process, the internal processes that are behind the scenes that will help with the effective administration. And then, as you said, I think it's you, Gregory, who said it, that would then show itself, right, in the effectiveness over time. So I'm excited about that, process-oriented, procedures-oriented, and making sure things are documented for posterity, but also for reference. But also for reference.
Madam Speaker, we are very, very grateful. We know you've told us that, and you did tell me, you're way past that. We want to thank you very, very much. Guys, anyone short final comment, question?
It was a pleasure meeting you, Madam Speaker.
It
Thank you.
definitely was a pleasure, Madam Speaker, and I hope this Monday me and my little crew could come and intern with you too.
Of course, we welcome visits. We definitely welcome
Madam
them.
Speaker, in your leaving, I would really appeal to you, because I think you said something just now, an idea that I find extremely brilliant, and I wish you would pursue it, to sensitize our young people to the Parliament. I think this, if you do this, and I know you will, it will be one of the hallmarks of your speakership.
Yes.
Trust me, you carry it.
We are left with hope that things will get better. You're doing what you can. We thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, G. Mike. All the best.
Much love.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah. Why? You know, and it's what I'm most impressed with her ability to speak and carry on the conversation, and I think that has to be taught more to our children coming up, where they can speak to people and address issues.
And she made a good point. The speaker made a good point. What we need to develop in our schools, both primary and secondary, is debate. We need to practice have debate clubs and such that promotes both the ability to speak, as you're saying, J. Mike, and it also promotes the idea of the decorum of how you carry on a debate.
Right, without losing your temper and without turning insults.
Yeah, and it promotes democracy too, because it allows us to come together and talk out our issues rather than finding other methods of dealing with stuff, you know.
Insecurities show through many times with that, because I see many of the young people when I speak to them, like they can't even look at you. They don't look at you. They talk and walk away, and it's like, wait a minute, what do you say? What do you say? And you can't understand what they say because they don't speak directly to you. So I think, and that's something that has to be learned. I don't know that being a politician needs to be learned, as she said, no, but certainly the art of communication is a very important one that has to be studied and learned. I find it very educational the time we spent this evening with the speaker, and I'm glad we did. Couple of things.
I have to say, I did learn something new. I didn't know there was an upper house and a lower house. Now I understand.
I know the Senate. Actually, I think that I believe the upper house should be abolished. I don't think the Senate serves much of a purpose at all. I really accept for as a dumping ground for political cronies. But that is my opinion, and you know, I've been told that it's sometimes wrong. So. But my opinion is the upper and the lower, the Senate being there, bills are passed. How does it work, Joe? Bills are passed through the House and passed to the Senate for debate. Is that it? Or for review? What are the real function there of the Senate?
The Senate, as it was before the last amendment to the Constitution, seemed to be just a rubber stamp. But one of the things I think we must give it credit for is that the debates in the Senate, even though they cannot stop a bill, they can only delay certain bills, but they cannot stop them. So in the end, they will go through. But one of the things they were doing was to sensitize and make the public aware of what they believe might be wrong. Now, the rubber stamp thing, I think, was there for quite some time until when they amended the Constitution to to bring in the 13th senator. And I think that was a remarkable achievement.
It was a good idea, Joe, but badly implemented.
Well,
Good
the
idea.
implication of it is that, remember at first that the then Prime Minister was opposing it, and the union had to actually go out there and demonstrate and pressured the Prime Minister at the time to appoint the 13th senator.
Yeah.
So during that period, then they amended the Constitution. And what they did was something, I think, again, that was a very major achievement for Belize, which some of us aren't aware of. The Constitution shifts then a lot of responsibility to the Senate for oversight.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was good, and still is very good. And sometimes we need to give more recognition to it. The Senate now has oversight, which before the Constitution Amendment never had. And that's why they're having these hearings now.
Gregory might be happy to know that 13th senator came from the church, no? My problem with it is that they dismantled the church organization and assembled a different one of their own people, and then put that representative from there in there, and it was ridiculous, a blatant misuse of the whole.
Well, I do have concern not only about the church senator. I have concern about the business senator, and I have concern about the union senator. I think those are the three that they have appointed. It seems to me that what happens is that there's a double dipping, because the same Christian people are the regular people. So now they have a specific senator that represent church values and stuff. So I'm concerned about that whole idea of how they went to those particular groups and carved out a Senate seat for those. I'm looking. Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
I wanted to give you the background to it, because it has a background which is not in Belize. It started through it was part of the new public management for the world, no? Particularly the Western countries. And of course, the first country to give recognition to it was Barbados. And that was what they called the social partnership. It was felt that the social partnership was to come in to government, not by election, but by appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And the social partnership was to be, you have the civil society.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that civil society, you have these different...
carve out, set aside.
You have the NGOs, you have the trade unions, you have the Chamber of Commerce, you have the churches. So everything left after that is the rest of the civil society.
Right.
So they thought that these members of the society should be playing a part. So I think this is a very good idea.
I'm not of that thinking.
Yeah. When we discuss this, we got a number of issues we want to deal with, and we can talk about that some more at another time.
Okay.
Conte passed away, I understand.
Yeah. But he passed away at least 2 or 3 months ago, no?
That long?
Yeah.
Well,
it was last month. He passed away in August.
Yeah, I haven't heard much lamenting from, in particular, members of our panel, but
well, to me, he did a disservice to our country. That's how I see him.
With the Mayan issue, you mean?
Yes.
Specifically. Yeah. So, but anyway, Egan, I noted that the PM went to New York with his entourage for the United Nations meeting.
Yes.
What was important to me is comments by the president, Bernardo Suela is the guy's name, that expressed a commitment to settle the claim in an amicable, peaceful way. I don't see a lot of jumping up and down about that, but I think
because we don't know what that means. He needs to tell us they'll drop the claim. No, we don't need he just need to say Guatemala will find a way of removing that claim.
He did say we're going to the court and he's going to respect the decision from the court. At the dropping of the claim at this point is a moot.
Well, it's moot, but that's what Guatemala could always do. Is to say we no longer make claims.
And not go to court. Just say we're not going to court. We're not
going to court.
That's not
Mr. Morrison, ask the question. You say that Guatemala can just drop the claim. But who is Guatemala? When you say Guatemala, what you mean?
I understand you're going to tell me about the oligarch and how the last president that did that got overthrown and all that. And I agree. I agree that all those things he faced. And I appreciate what he said. It's not that I'm disregarding that, but the chairman asked a question and I was just responding. What Guatemala can do, regardless of their internal strategies and conflicts and structures, is to drop the claim against our country and resolve this and make it amicable and let us live in peace.
That's very, very unlikely, and I don't know. That's so far-fetched. It's ridiculous.
It's not really unlikely. I think it's almost impossible.
Impossible.
Well, no. I understand, but I'm saying what Guatemala has to do.
But see, the problem is too, Gregory, is that this has been hammered into a psyche, constantly. This fear and hatred of Guatemala. And
I don't think we hate Guatemala.
Oh boy, you need to talk to. You really need to talk to.
No, I don't think people hate Guatemala.
Oh man, when they're afraid of Guatemala.
We have more Guatemalan in our country than we have any other damn.
That's neither here nor there when it comes to that.
It tells you we don't have a hate. There's a relationship between them.
Can I come back to something? Because I hatred thing, we won't get anywhere with that.
Yeah.
Who was it that made this statement? You said at the United Nations.
The president of Guatemala.
No, I wanted to make it clear that it was the president indeed. You know why? To me, that was a very good gesture.
Yes,
I think the president of Guatemala at this point in time can come out and say that he will respect the decision of the court, if that's what I understand he said.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah.
So he can record now at the United Nations that he will respect the decision. And that to me was a good decision to make.
And he went further than that. He said he's going to settle it in a peaceful way with our neighbors who are Belizeans. And so basically affirming that Belize, he recognizes Belize as a state.
To me, in inference, that's what he did.
Yeah.
That statement was a recognition of our sovereignty because he's saying that he will recognize the decision.
But I let's not say hatred, but there's some animosity, almost xenophobia in a lot of ways. And I think what we haven't come to grips with is that Guatemala is a large trading partner, if we get to that point. Brazil is now making a lot of noise about the wonderful trade they do with Guatemala and highlighting the amount of people that are there. You talk about 18 million people. And I heard the other day on a radio station, they were saying, why are our cows going to Guatemala? We shouldn't be sending our cows to Guatemala. And I'm like, really? I mean, as if we're not getting anything for it.
I'm not that person. I believe we should do trade, and I do believe, and I do recognize that Guatemala is a major country and could be a good trading partner for Belize. And Belize have a lot of men that are Guatemalan in major businesses in our country.
But we can benefit a lot from a good relationship as opposed to a hostile relationship. And
but
so
who makes the relationship hostile, G. Mike?
I believe we do. I believe we do more. We do more than them.
Because we buff their claim.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
Because we debuff their claim.
Don't answer the question and answer it too. If you want to know why I think we do, because I think we aggravate the situation more than it. We're like Don Quixote, the fight on windmill, and they call it a monster, but it's just spinning around. That's all, it's spinning around.
I think that the animosity and xenophobia stems from grassroots Belizeans feeling that they have been overlooked. And even with trade, we had sugar shortage, we had flour shortage recently, and even with the meat being traded, our government needs to start putting Belizeans first. We should never run out of food.
But Deja, you're saying that might be one of the reasons for xenophobia, but this is something new. This is not and I agree with you.
It's a general principle of what people
believe. No, you have to feed yourself first before you do. So I'm not saying to send the stuff that we need to eat locally,
But I
over
think
there. But certainly we can develop a more vibrant cattle industry, more cashew,
Yep.
more corn, more oranges.
Yep.
So and
Belize has the land to do it, but I think
we have.
it's the mentality of
Wow, there we go.
us not putting Belizeans first.
And Belize has not
let's
put
just come back to
themselves
the
first.
sugar thing because I think we need to clear that up. Again, I don't think what had happened with the sugar. The simple thing is that in Belize, the government subsidized the sugar
Sa Michaela.
so that the Belizean consumers can benefit. In other words, the price for sugar abroad is much
Right.
higher than what we pay at home. Now, you had some unscrupulous merchants who take that sugar, which they were getting at subsidized price, and were smuggling it outside.
But you're saying though that I hope you're not saying we need to raise the price of sugar, Joe.
No. I never did say that. I'm not being followed. All I'm trying to do is to clarify the
Because
position.
that usually happens eventually, you know what I mean?
No, we still need to keep the subsidy to keep the domestic market.
But they're like the expo. They're like the expo where they have where all the merchants go and buy up all the deals where they got and then go back to the store and sell it for the regular price.
Gentlemen, let me come back to see if I could get over the point. Merchants, I don't know how many of them, were in fact violating the law.
Right.
So, the government has put a stop to it, and it's finished.
The government has put a stop or should
Yes,
put a stop.
no,
We
okay,
have.
stop
Well, the
it.
truck ran off the road and fell in the ditch.
No, man, hold on. When the goods are going through from Belize, remember when the cattle were going through?
Sugar and flour still scarce, you know.
I had to check. What I'm saying here is that the subsidized sugar was not for export. So it was
All
illegal.
right. Okay.
Yeah, it was illegal. That's what I'm saying. It's not as if though we were trading in it legally
Yes.
and the government encouraged Guatemalans to have priority over with sugar. No, that's not true. That's the point
It
I'm
was
trying to make.
unscrupulous business people and it's an illegal trade
But-
with custom department looking the other way as these truckloads of sugar crosses the border.
So our friend Sam Gentle is suggesting that we're not going for trade, not even agriculture. We cannot mass produce. I don't think that the proper word is cannot. Excuse me. We certainly have all the land necessary. We have people that come in and work. We can do it. We're not doing it. I agree. And if that's the point you're making, fine. We are underproducing. We should. There was a time when we were touted as the breadbasket for the Caribbean and Central America. We have
were
not
hopeful.
filled that
We were
obligation.
hopeful. Yeah, we were hopeful.
We have not filled that obligation, and we ought to. We ought to do more to that. Government ought to be encouraging more production in all these
And
areas.
we hope
that
that
said-
some just one thing let me say, we hope that some of the focus of the government will be in the productive sector of the economy, producing things, using our agricultural advantages to produce, rather than just put all their eggs in this tourism industry, so that we have a productive base for our society.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Deidre,
would
you
that-
there? Who's speaking?
Lisa.
Who's speaking? Lisa.
No, did you guys see the live statistics report today?
No,
Any
I
one
didn't
of you
see
guys?
it. No, I didn't.
There was a presentation today about the GDP, and they had forecasted it would look somewhere between 3 and 4%. Now the
That's
actual
very
numbers
good.
are in, but now the numbers is 1.9%.
No, that's not
or
possible.
or
That's not
somewhere
possible.
around that for the first quarter of
Our economy grew by
2024.
by $3 billion.
Well, that's what I'm asking if anyone saw
No, I
it,
didn't see that,
because
but that doesn't
I
sound right.
so I was wondering if
It's too optimistic for you, Greg?
No, it's too low.
Right.
That's too low. If they're telling us, or the Prime Minister in his speech to the nation talked about the economy growing from 3 billion to 6 billion.
Yeah.
And
So
so,
this would be contradicting that.
yeah, that would contradict.
Correct.
Yeah, but Mr. Greg, let me qualify that. When you said that it grew, he's giving you a period back.
Yes,
You're
a year
talking
ago.
about that the growth of the economy is measured annually.
Yes.
But what he was trying to show you, that here was 2020 when they came into office. And he's showing you how much they have grown it since then till now. That's what he was trying to point out. So it's not that the
Oh, he
economy.
didn't. So it's not in that 1 year period.
No,
No,
impossible.
no.
Oh,
Impossible.
it grew from 3 billion to 6.7 billion.
FUE growth is around 5%, which is very good.
There you
Yeah,
were
yeah,
celebrating.
yeah.
So it's not 1 point something for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. 1 point something is not
One
possible. Is not.
point
It's
something
stagnant.
would be 1.9 would have been like for the quarter. Our quarterly growth.
It
That's
was
that'll
right.
be
It was
stagnant.
for the
So,
Our
folks,
GDP is growing at about 5 to 6. We do have a pretty good GDP growth.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Joe might appreciate this, Joe. Today, Bertie Ellis celebrated 108 years
Yes, yeah.
of age. I mean, are you kidding me?
Wow. And he's still sound and
The
capable.
man they talk and the man say no pains, no, and I'm like, I don't know. I no special diet.
Yeah.
No.
He say eat where everybody else in the house eat.
Yeah. So, and obviously he's been an athlete though, and has always been active, no.
That's right.
So,
well, I will say something about Mr. Bertie. When we were little kids, we would pass when we're going home from school. He worked at that time. We lived right on Kelly Street there, and we'd pass the Castillo warehouse where he was manager, and we'd say, Mr. Bertie, could we have some potato? And he'd say, okay. And we'd go to the store across the street, buy a paper bag for like 2 cents or 3 cents, and he'd let us fill it with potato, and we'd take it home and have chips. We'd make potato chips fry. So I always remember that generosity about him, you know.
So, Mr. Potato Chips Bertie.
Yeah.
These are saying when the economy is considered, when you're looking at the economy, the national debt should also be considered.
Of course it should.
Yeah.
It should. And especially if we have continued renewed borrowing.
And it's sizable. It's sizable.
Yes,
Yeah,
very sizable.
But I think the Prime Minister in the State of the Nation address, of course, like they all do, he outlined the macroeconomic of the economy, which means the
big picture. National debt, budget, not the micro.
The debt, the GDP, the inflation, unemployment.
Yes.
That's what he was outlining. And of course, when the opposition had its turn, while the Prime Minister was pointing out quite clearly to us that he began
macro, he was talking about micro, right?
But he brought the economy, he brought the glass to a half full glass.
As a tricks of the trade, yeah.
And what he did, he dramatized it, and the thing about it is factual. It's a fact.
Yeah.
You have to balance it with Shine's account. What is going on?
Opposition comes as usual. And what the opposition does, the opposition will find fault with the half empty glass.
Yeah.
So he dramatized the half empty to dwarf the half full. But I believe that if the opposition, and I'm saying this of any opposition, would have been more responsible, rather than just throwing out a lot of criticism and condemnation, which is not grounded in anything that make any economic sense to me. Now, I would have taken the same macroeconomic figures and asked myself, are we better off in terms of the shared prosperity? Yes. Because you grow your GDP 5, 6, 7%, and fine.
But he did that. He did that in the way, in a little different way. But he was talking about the individual. He was talking about the people that were still struggling and having a hard time meeting ends meet. So that was basically addressing the micro part and the individual personal relationship as how this economy is fitting is affecting them. So I think he did the same.
Yeah, you have to get on his slack too. He's young, he's inexperienced, and he's definitely got nobody behind him. So
I think the opposition leader demonstrate a lot of capacity and capability and quite a bit of knowledge.
Given where he is at.
I think he did an excellent presentation. And also in the speech on Independence Day, I think he did a wonderful and very good presentation to the nation on the parts that how we must work together.
Did you read the leader of the opposition reply at the State of the Nation?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
I read it myself. In fact, we had a discussion on it.
Yes.
And I believe indeed that we have to ask ourselves the difference between rhetoric and evidence-based criticism. Because I think in his rhetoric, he was very good. So if you listen to him and you do not understand how to evaluate a critique, you would say, boy, that's good. So I would say I will give him credit for the rhetoric. But to actually take it and show why. You see, you can find poverty in Belize. That's a fact. You do have it. But we have to ask ourselves that could we have done better with what we have? And did we do well enough with it? And when the Prime Minister cited the case of the relief that he will give, just one example I will give you. When he decided to give for those who invest in sport.
We aren't having the same debate over again, right? With the opposition and the
No,
government.
this is different. But invest in sport is important because that's a part of it. It does so much to benefit our young people.
Yeah, but again, sorry to interrupt. I wasn't going to use it. I am saying if I was the opposition, I would have knocked that down. Because why do you give this 1% or the 30,000, whichever is lower, for those who contribute to sports and to education? When you do that with the private sector, with a corporation, the corporation is using that money for advertisement. Now, the corporation will decide who he will give it to. But if you instead take the money, and that is what I have my differences with certain of these conversations, not here, I mean, but outside. When you take that money instead and let the corporation pay it into the consolidated fund, then the government has a better way of how to distribute it.
But the government haven't been doing that effectively, Mr. Cowie. They haven't been contributing in the quantity and numbers they need for sports. We had one athlete go to the Olympics game.
Mr. Morrison, can I come back and again?
But Joe, no filibuster because we don't
I want us to have these discussions, but we don't want to leave them as if though that what we said is so. The simple point that I'm making, if you begin to say that because government is inefficient and ineffective, we shouldn't give the money to them, then to me, don't give the government any taxes, period.
Well, but no, I'm saying I don't have a problem with him carving out that business could make those contributions to those very needed spaces. In time, we need to adjust it because we know that will become unbalanced in its own way. But I'm saying for the meantime, while we have this gridlock and need to make sports more effective, then this seems like a good carve out to address some of the immediate problem. It will not be the long-term solution. The long-term solution is for the money to be paid through taxes to the consolidated fund, and government operate effectively and efficiently where they do that. I am thinking that a government should have a set budget for all these things.
Well, Greg, if sports is run...
Just one moment, Mr. I'll give it back. Just a certain percentage to our legislative branch, a certain percentage to our sports and schools and healthcare. That should always be a percentage of our national budget, and that is where I think we are failing. It's very arbitrary.
If sports is set and run effectively, it should be able to pay for itself because they have get fees that you have to pay to get into watch.
That usually promotes a little bit.
But all that doesn't
allow it. Yeah, that doesn't allow for the development of it in the schools. It doesn't allow for it. That takes it to a different level when it gets to a SADA.
Yeah, but we can't get it to that level unless we do the development. Correct. Joe, what were you saying? Go ahead.
I want to give you an example if you listen to what happened. After Kamala gave her speech. You know Mark Cuban, right? Mark Cuban is a billionaire. Very wealthy guy.
Yes.
And in an interview, and I'm saying this because even in America, some of them got caught by what Trump said. Hillary will introduce the corporate tax to 28%. Trump said that he will reduce it to 50%, but what he will do, he said he will put on a tariff. If need be up to 200% on Jandia if he goes over to Mexico, and he put on high tariff on goods coming from China. Now, imagine the man who is campaigning to be the president. You know what Mark Cuban said of him? And he put aside Elon Musk, who is the richest man in the world. He said, how is it you could think simply because one will increase the corporate tax by 28%, that is worse? He said, no. He said, the importation, the tariff put on imports will be worse to the corporations than the 28%.
Yeah.
And that's the point I am trying to make when we speak of how we're going to give relief for taxes. I would not give that relief because that relief is to benefit the corporation. Whereas I believe it goes into the consolidated fund, then we can better share it.
All right.
Mr. Cowie,
Um,
we have the situation where the funds for tourism and taxes was supposed to contribute directly towards schools. We don't even know what that amount is. We don't see any extra money coming into the schools as part of the tourism trade that is so
Casino and
vibrant.
gambling was supposed to be doing. Casino
Exactly.
and Molina was
It
to do it
doesn't
too.
happen. It
I
doesn't
fully
happen.
agree. But let's go back to what we were talking of earlier with the Speaker of the House. And that's the point I was making myself. When we were talking, and I came in and I told you that I don't have a problem in reviewing the Constitution. What I have a problem with is the lack of compliance. So those things that you are speaking of, I agree with you. But not because they're not complying, you will turn the whole dory over, you will turn the boat over. No, we need to enforce the compliance.
But we're saying the same thing, Joe. Aren't
Well,
we?
then let's say the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, there's I'm gonna want to get to one situation with Deetra. Deetra, can you unmic? Because there's a young man out there that's seeking help. I'm gonna want to give only a few moments to his cause. A guy with a big tumor, and I don't know if you
I
guys
did
saw
see
that
that. I
story.
did see that on Facebook.
And DJ has been trying to get something put together and working with this guy from Belize. What's his name? DJ, give me a little help here.
Oh, sure, and I forgive me for dogs barking in the background.
Okay.
But the young man's name is Tristan. I spoke with his mom yesterday and the day before. So apparently that tumor started in June of this year. So June, July, August, September, 3 months, it grew to the size that we witnessed. He was only given Tylenol and antibiotics from the hospital in Belize City. Um, obviously, he needs more treatment. Has been in a lot of pain. It's been oozing with blood in the last 2 days. To my understanding, today he was in the hospital, and I'm waiting to get an update from Albert with Ladyville Highlights on if a surgeon will be operating on him within Belize.
But isn't that a failure of our healthcare system? Shouldn't, I mean, we do, I mean, it is just ridiculous that every time we have to be doing GoFundMe for so many stuff that it's not that our healthcare system is not funded by a great amount of money. There seem to be a lot of waste within it, and we saw some in purchasing a land that could be going, when they could be using the public or the land that was offered to them by the
That
university.
6.9 million
Yeah.
could have
Yeah,
helped this
you
child.
see,
indeed.
so there's a lot of waste, and I'm getting tired. I think Lisa had mentioned it. No more GoFundMe, no more support of those type of stuff from me.
Yep.
They need to find a way to more effectively and efficiently, and the people in Belize need to make sure that they appeal to their government to make these changes that are necessary.
But Greg, while the grass to grow, the house to starve. So what are you going to do with the people? Those people, you're going to just let them fall by the wayside and be victims of the abuse that you
The
speak
people
of?
need to agitate their government to be responsive to their needs.
Yep.
But you're being very I don't
I
hear any
understand
kind of
what you're saying.
no compassion for
No, I
people.
of course I
Yeah.
have great empathy for that young man and his family, and I would like for them to get the care. But what I'm appealing to is for our healthcare system to address his needs. There's
Yeah, that
doctors
would be
there.
the ideal. That would be ideal, but certainly, you down about what is or
I
what ought
think
to be.
I'm going to share my experience because I actually reached out to a few children's hospitals in the States to see if we can get him here. Because as of yesterday, there was no doctor willing to operate on him. The mother was told that she would have to wait another month before a pediatrician came to Belize, and that was unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
So I actually called a few specialists I knew, in addition to some children's hospitals, but even they in the States are cautious in taking international patients. It's
Mhm.
all about money out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
One hospital was willing to open up a case for Tristan, and that was a teaching hospital,
Mhm.
which I also take my daughter to. So I agree with Gregory that we need to advocate. This should be more fuel to start fighting for medical rights for Belizeans, but also adequate care, um, because it is a matter of life and death in some situations. And
Yes.
we had a doctor a few months ago doing a GoFundMe and seeking care outside of Belize, I believe in
Mhm.
Guatemala.
Mhm.
That needs to stop. You know, our people deserve better. And
Yeah.
even in the US, there's no guarantee that someone will foot the bill or accept these international patients.
It's
Yeah.
tricky. It's a
Yeah.
tricky one. Tricky one.
Yep. Yep.
True.
There are organizations like the Rotary Club and different organization that does sponsor for healthcare. I remember I had a sister once that had a problem with her eye, and it was the Rotary Club that kind of helped organize particularly her trip, and then going to a hospital in Texas so that she could have care.
You remember
So
Wings of Hope? Wings of Hope used to do it for people also. I don't
yeah,
know if they're
yeah.
still there. I hope it's not the same sister that Julia has. But Julia's sister had something in her ear.
Oh
Then
No,
she
dear.
no, hers was her eyes. Hers was her eyes.
okay.
Yeah,
The two other
yeah,
sister got problems. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
right.
Well, fortunately, she got treated. We spent
That
many
one,
thousands of dollars more,
yeah.
and she's well. She's well now and doing good.
That one tricky thing because I think we have to wait and kind of they'll have to work together because we don't want to be insensitive to the point where we say, well, you know
Yeah.
what, the government will do it. We don't want nothing to
No,
do
no,
with it.
I'm not saying
Because
government. I'm saying the people.
Yeah.
If the
yeah.
people demand that the government respond to that need,
Ah,
if you get 200 people from Belize call the minister in whichever constituency he lives and say, Mr. Minister, you need to look after this young man. I'm sure that minister is going to call the hospital and get care for that young man. People needs to become more active in their responsibility to themselves.
I
well, the
agree.
minister saw the story like we did. I mean, I saw it
But
on
if you
the
don't
news.
advocate for it, it's not going to happen. If you don't have those people, 50 or 100 or 200 people from that constituency call the minister with that concern, it's not going to happen. It's
Well,
human
I
nature.
have
They'll
a different
ignore it.
perspective, guys. If they outright told me at the door that they couldn't take my donations, imagine donations that could be utilized. And I've had the physicians tell me that the items are very needed, but they too have their hands crossed with financing. So I am this right here brings me to tears to see another child needing health care and don't even have the resources. This is devastating to me.
It is devastating, and I
It is.
want to
It
put
is.
in a plug here before we close off.
Mhm.
I listened to everything you were saying, Deidre, and the other gentlemen. The NHI in Belize has not reached and will never reach probably what you call the comprehensive coverage. We have 100% coverage at the PCP level. Now, I was at the hospital today, they call Hushta, because of an emergency, and I was helping somebody. And what I saw there was pathetic
Mm.
because there was a lot of people who should have been at the PCP waiting for simple services. Simple.
Mhm.
Thing like getting a blood pressure test and whatnot. And I had to scold one of the doctors myself, and I told him how I felt about how he behaved himself. What I think we should be doing, because you will never reach the comprehensive in Belize, not right now. I think this is the opportunity for us to either join with Rotary or form our own NGO with Belize and the diaspora.
Mhm.
And just like how they do in America, and let's fund it.
Yeah.
We ask for contributions annually. I see many of them I have contributed through
Mhm.
what I saw on television in the States through my family members there
Yeah.
for children that are in need. And I believe indeed they are quite deserving of it. Just imagine, and I want to say this quite blatantly. How much for a pack of cigarette?
$10 now.
How much for a bottle of whiskey? How much for a bottle of rum? Huh? How much for they pay here when you look at what was happening over the holidays? Almost every place there was beer selling by a big corporation in Belize that controlled beer. Everywhere they were, all over the place. Everybody have drinking in their hands. And you will tell me that we have children out there who is in need, and we cannot put up that money to help that child. That means to tell you how inhumane we are as a society.
Even if a tax has to be added on to liquor and cigarettes for healthcare, so be it.
Yeah,
or if you look at our national budget, Deetra and guys, we contribute a healthy sum towards our healthcare in this country. A lot of it is wasted. A lot of it is misused. And we need to address that. And we need to also hold the government accountable and the hospital administration accountable. And I agree with everything you're saying, but Mr. Cowie, the truth is, it's every other day we see this situation. And yes, we can make our own NGO and group, Rotary or whoever, JCs or whoever those organizations are, to help us develop and to find support for these people that need help. But the key is to have the people advocate for their governance to be better, so that government and the institutions that serve us are more responsive to our needs.
That's the reform we want. But we don't want to, it's not the Constitution that is so urgent to reform. Yes. But I know that it shouldn't. What is urgent is to ensure that the Constitution is being complied with. So when you talk of health is not if you look in the Constitution, health is not a right under the Constitution. And I think we should make it a right. Health and education.
Okay, but isn't health a right? And it is a right. I'm sure there's something
not in the Constitution. Not in the Constitution. It's not in the Constitution at all.
It is in the preamble. They have to mention it.
The welfare is in the
correct.
Is in the preamble.
But there's so much more that we're going to talk about tonight. And tell you the commissioner get bully-reg and he was unhappy with the fines that was levied on the perpetrator, and that he compared it to a sentence given to a police officer. I was on news tonight, and in fact, I missed the part where I'm in the wait pan when they were going to decide who the most popular politician in town. And I was waiting to hear Joe's name, but it didn't. I couldn't listen that long. I had to come on, no? I got also one gentleman kill a brother over one bottle of rum down south. And there's some killings and whatnot. The number of accidents. But there's so much that has been going on, in particular over the celebrations. And I don't know that.
I saw a lot of road accident. It was contributed by alcoholism, drinking and driving.
Lot of motorcycle accidents also continued. No, so I don't know that I would say tone back on the celebrations, because they asked the commissioner that question. I think we have to be more responsible as citizens, and we have to understand where the limit is. They were discussing the matter about the consumption of alcohol and up there in Orange Walk, while Carnival was more violent than it was in Belize. And they fell short of suggesting that some people don't take liquor as well as other people, and they need to know where the limit is. Sometimes some limit lower than other limits. So that's the one part that we have to look upon. I got in trouble because they were bigging up the young man, Langsford, and getting a scholarship and choosing Harvard to go to school. You spoke earlier, Gregory, about us having one athlete in the Olympics, and he did dismal actually, but they wanted to give him a ticket parade. My point is that maybe we celebrate too readily mediocrity. We not raise our bar high enough. Wait till a man come out of college and do something, and then we blow. You know, wait till a man dead to tell him, tell her good. But then you also not tell her good to hurry, because you might put pressure up and I'll make you think, oh, I've reached the pinnacle of my success. There's more to go. We have guys like Arte Pettas who can be applauded. Milton Palasha made it to the NBA in sports, can be applauded. These are people who have reached a height. But when you to just sign up for a course in a school, regardless of how prestigious the school is, I don't think it's enough for the country to stop and do a whole lot of celebrating. Just my point. And
Yeah,
might
yeah,
agree
I
on that.
no, I agree. I agree with you. We do need to put our eye on the prize and
Lift the
recognize
goal a little higher.
through achievement.
Raise the
rather
bar a
than-
little
yes,
higher. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I agree.
Folks, it's time. We're out of time. A wonderful show. I really enjoyed the speaker. Thanks for everybody. Joe, I wish you didn't have such technical difficulties there. And Gregory, next time, left the man camera right way there, right? God, you gonna fix the camera.
I wanted to see all his face and make sure it's still his hair, man. That's all.
People, next time, more time.
Anyway, but before
Next
you guys
week's
get
time.
off,
One more
Yes.
thing.
thing I wanted to ask you guys, so the young gentleman is looking for financial assistance, or he's looking for help, other than the healthcare and fees?
We didn't get. I didn't get that too clearly.
I think he said, well, he's looking for financial assistance.
Where-
I think he's looking for assistance of any sort. And the
Yeah.
financial part, of course, take finances to help, no? But there's
Yeah.
been no. I was speaking to Deidre. I was telling her that maybe we can do a fundraising. Maybe I do a barbecue sale or something. If something needs to be done, we just need to know what needs to be done. The child needs help.
Yes,
I don't think we can wait until the government gets their act together
Right.
and put their ducks in a row.
Yeah,
We,
there's
uh,
possibly a surgeon in Belize City today who's assisting the young man. I don't know yet. Albert from Ladyville Highlights will give us an update this evening.
wonderful.
Okay.
We look for your. For
I
that
didn't want to
update.
seem hard-hearted in
Heartless.
not addressing the concern of the young man. But I want the people to start taking activism and recognize that the speaker mentioned this. People
point
don't
is
realize
taken.
the
Your point
level
is
of
taken.
power they have.
Well, Joe
in-
says it
in
every week.
affecting,
Joe
yes,
to his
in
credit,
affecting
no?
their society.
Yeah,
Yes.
Gregory, I'm going to say it's a band-aid. Every time we address just one instance, it's just a band-aid for a bigger problem.
That's correct. That's correct.
Let's see what we can do to effect the change. Let's move forward positively, but by the same token, not gonna lose the compassion and the care for fellow beings. No, guys.
Well, I want to leave the show with this to you all men, since we had a lady on the show tonight as a guest, I would say I happen to know her for some years, and I think she made a very good speaker.
Yes.
And beautiful too.
So on behalf of the women, I want to say that we men, it's about time we begin to put a woman in power.
Feel good.
Until next week, same time, same place. CY. Take
Good
it away, man.
night.
Good night, everyone.
But we no nama.
No nama.
And we royal. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like toffee. We could have holla say me ugly, but a loon pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee. And my style sticky like toffee. How could you call me ugly when a loon pretty girl stay to chase me? Minor, tell you things you make you catch feelings. Your mere existence, you want left to examine. Ebenezer me gone, me know for the squeeze dumpling. Believe woman sweet like stew pumpkin. See me, but you don't know me. Confident, say that me bossy. Inquisitive, you call me nosy. Defend me rights, holler at me chancy. Me know this show no mercy. We don't take no back chat from nobody. You don't have feel like me, but you must respect me. Tell this more. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like toffee. We could have holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Me cool and deadly. Machine gun Kelly. Machiavelli. Stay ready like Freddy. We have woman plenty. Woman the city, woman the country. You could act like you don't want, believe me. As Dwight, that dummy Bali. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Lot of sexy woman come out of the valley. Me like the way the body move when they party. And a bitch white and Alta Leslie. And the one name Gilda Courtney. Dano Jam, Sadamus Jelly from me Lille. Me know where we do with me till it. Me grow up as a bedroom bully. Bucket with vein full up them belly. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They woulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? I am a royal coffee, my style sticky like taffy. They woulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Real, with a Creole, but we no normal. With a coffee and we royal. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Minor, tell you things you want make you catch feelings. Your mere existence you want left to examine. Ebenezer me gone, me know for the feel dumpling. Believe woman sweet like you pumpkin. See me, but you don't know me. Confident, say that me bossy. Inquisitive, you call me nosy. Defend me rights, holler at me chancy. Me know this show no mercy. We don't take no back chat from nobody. You know have feel like me, but you must respect me. Tell this more. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Me cool and deadly. Machine Gun Kelly. Machiavelli, stay ready like Freddy. We have woman plenty, woman the city, woman the country. You coulda act like you no want believe me. Ask Dwight, that dummy Bali. I am a royal coffee, my style sticky like taffy. They coulda holla say me ugly, but a lone pretty girl stay to chase me. Royal coffee, and my style sticky like taffy. How could you call me ugly when a lone pretty girl stay to chase me? Lot of sexy woman come out of the valley. Me like the way the body move when they party. And a bitch white and Alta Leslie. And the one name Gilda Courtney. Dano Jam, Sadamus Jelly from me Lille. Me know where we do with me till it. Me grow up as a bedroom bully. Bucket with vein full up them belly. I am a royal coffee. My style sticky like